Most DSLRs have at least 4 modes: manual, aperture priority, shutter priority, and program. However, many entry and mid-level DSLRs have a few extra modes. The extra modes on my Nikon D3100 here are pretty common, so let's go through them. First though, there's auto and auto flash off, both of which basically give you point and shoot capabilities. The only difference between the two is the use of flash. In auto, the camera will decide if you need it and even pop up your on-camera flash. But in auto no flash, I think you can guess. Yep, it just won't use the flash. It'll use other means to get an acceptable exposure. Now, if you want more control over the camera settings, but you're not quite ready or just don't want to jump into aperture priority or shutter priority or even program mode, you can use the scene modes. They will pretty much do the same thing as auto mode, but will be customized to the general situation or scene. My D3100 has 6 scene modes and they're pretty standard. If you have scene modes on your DSLR, they're probably similar. The scene modes on the D3100 are the ones that are the pictures on the mode dial on top of the camera. So let's go through them and I can talk to you about what each one is for and what the camera actually does when you use it. That way you'll have a little bit of insight as to what's going on in the camera when you use them. Let's talk about portrait mode first. It would be used for, you guessed it, portraits, but it would give you a soft, natural looking skin tone. And the background will be blurred if your subject is far enough away from it so that the viewer's attention is brought right to the subject, which is nice in a portrait. And the camera will also pop the flash up if it decides that it needs it. Next, we have landscape mode, and it is for daytime landscape shots with vivid color. In this mode, the flash is disabled because if you're taking a landscape photo, the light from your flash probably won't reach your landscape, so there's no point to have it on. And similarly, the autofocus assist lamp is turned off for the same reason. Next, we have child mode, and it is good for photos of kids. The colors are going to be bright, but the skin tone should remain natural looking. Next, we have sports mode, and you would use that when you need to catch something in motion. You wouldn't even necessarily just need to use it for sports. You could use it for anything where something's in motion, like maybe even a bird. But in this, the flash and the autofocus assist lamp are also turned off. And you should remember to use continuous release mode if you want to take a series of shots. Remember that in these modes, the camera will not change the release mode. So if you want single or continuous, you're going to have to make that change on your own, and you can find that information in your manual. The next mode is close-up, and it is used for, you can guess, close-ups, but these are used for mostly small objects, and in these, a macro lens and a tripod would be helpful. Next, we have night portrait, and last, I guess, we have night portrait, and it would be used for portraits taken at night or at least in low light when you want a more natural looking balance between the subject and the background. And in this mode, a tripod is helpful as well to prevent blur. One thing to pay attention to when you're using these scene modes and even the auto modes is your focus. The camera will try to detect your subject and determine where and how to focus. On my D3100 and probably your DSLR, you'll see some dots or something similar light up in your viewfinder when you half press the shutter release. That dot or dots is where the camera is focusing. If it seems to be choosing the wrong things, try to recompose a bit and half press again. That being said, it's probably choosing the right things. These cameras are so smart these days. Also, the camera will use different focus modes depending on the scene mode selected. And if you're not sure what'll happen with the focus in each scene mode, do what I just did and experiment. On that note, the very best thing to do if you're trying to get to know photography and try to get to know your camera is to experiment. Especially if you don't know a whole lot about photography, experimenting with the scene modes and then taking a peek at the settings that the camera chose is a good way to learn. To see the settings in the camera, you can go to the photo information screen when you're in playback. To do that, you just press the play button. On my D3100 here, it's in the upper left on the back of the camera. Once you're there, you press the up or down button until the photo info appears. And you'll be able to see things like shutter speed and aperture and ISO there. You can also view the same information in some photo editing software like Picasa or Aperture. Now that I've told you what a great tool these scene modes are, I should tell you that there is some controversy in the world of photography over them. Some may say that if you're using scene modes, you're not a real photographer, or if your DSLR has scene modes, it's not a real camera. My response to people that say these things is, mind your own beeswax. That being said, let me know if you have any questions.